Hare Krishna. Yesterday evening I was giving a little talk to my crew, team, my lockdown team. We're just here in quarantine for a little while until we see what the consequence, hopefully none, of virus consequence of the fair, wonderful, successful fair that we just had this weekend is. And it was sort of lengthy. It was over 30 minutes, and I was just reading and commenting from the beginning verses of Prem Bhakti Chandrika. But I thought I would just share one very wonderful little anecdote about Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Kariya Aikya Arana Kariya Mane Asha, how a disciple becomes one. In the verse here it says Guru Mukha, with the words of the spiritual master, and we often hear this idea of understanding the mood and the mentality and the thoughts of the spiritual master. And of course here the disciple is not an ordinary disciple. By Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's grace, he's already been gifted love of Godhead, and not only he's been gifted love of Godhead, but now he's gone to Sri Vrindavan Dham, and in Vrindavan he meets Lokanatha Goswami. He meets many great Vaishnavas, and of course amongst them is Lokanatha Goswami, who he wants to accept as a spiritual master, but he won't accept disciples. So there's a long story as to how Narottama convinced Lokanatha to accept him. But we're coming to one particular pastime where Lokanatha is, Goswami is sitting and worshipping his deities, Radha Vinod. And remember, at that time Vrindavan was really a jungle, and these were sadhus. I mean, Lokanatha Goswami along with Bhugarbha Goswami, they were the first ones to actually go to Vrindavan under Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order, and they began to research the holy places as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted, but they also went on escapades trying to find Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but I was going to say they left that service to Rup Sanatan. They began it, handed over what they did, and Rup Sanatan continued. Nonetheless, Lokanatha Goswami used to worship his deity, and yes, what I was saying, almost lost my train of thought, was that they didn't have any paraphernalia. They had no temples at the time. The deities, sometimes the deities were hanging in a tree, other times they were hanging around their neck. They didn't have an altar. They would place them on a stone or raised platform, and whatever fruits and roots they collected, that they would offer to their deities, but other than that, there was nothing. So, in other words, there wasn't silver trays and Achman cups and the bells and this and that and so many things. There was no loy bazaar to go in and order and purchase things. So they did Manasa Puja. And on one such occasion, Lokanatha Goswami was sitting in front of his deities and doing Manasa Puja. And Narottama was sitting beside him, observing. And Lokanatha Goswami was dressing the deities in his mind. Because once again, remember, the deities weren't necessarily dressed. Perhaps they had a piece of cloth. Krishna may have had a flute, but most likely a stick that was being used as a flute, and that was all the deities. That's all they had to give to the deities. But still, within their minds, they did all kinds of wonderful and elaborate worship. And in that elaborate worship, Lokanatha Goswami is dressing, giving beautiful necklaces and silk cloth and all of these things. And one necklace that he envisages within his mind, he places to the side. And when it's time to put it on, he forgot where he placed it, so he doesn't know where it is. And in his meditation, he's looking around. Now, Narottama is also following the meditation and the mind of his spiritual master. Literally speaking, he's following his Manasa Puja. So, as I mentioned, he's no ordinary disciple. And he saw where the necklace was. So he told Lokanatha Goswami that the necklace is over here. And when Lokanatha saw this is not an ordinary person, he could appreciate the advancement, spiritual advancement of Narottama, and so he acquiesced, accepted him as a disciple. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Korea Akya Arana Kariya Mane Asha. So, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Korea Aikya, here he sort of repeats himself. He says, make myself one, make yourself one with the heart of the spiritual master, Arana Kariya Mane Asha, and have nothing else. Obviously, when you say you're one, then that means there's no second. But still he says, and don't let there be another second. So this is an example that at least devotees can meditate on. Yes, we may not be qualified as disciples like Narottama, and on the other hand, we may not be qualified as gurus like Lokanatha Goswami. But nonetheless, we can consider that, yes, this is what it means to be one with the mood, with the mind, with the heart, with the instructions of the spiritual master. And it was something that Srila Prabhupada very much emphasized when he was reading this Vyavasayatvika Buddhi Bhagavad Gita verse, and the commentary that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that this is the life and soul of a disciple, following the order of the spiritual master, being one with the order of the Guru. Hare Krishna.